Hello and welcome to the 22nd at Right Angles webinar. We have been having these webinars on the third Wednesday of every month. As you know, At Right Angles is a publication of Azim Premji University and of the Community Mathematics Center, Rishi Valley. We are a mathematics magazine catering to school mathematics from K to 12. And we have several sections: the features section, the classroom section, tech space, which looks at technological use of technology in mathematics, and the review section and the pullout section. We've actually focused on all the sections other than the review section. So this webinar, we thought we'd do that. The review section started by reviewing books on and around mathematics and math pedagogy. But slowly we began to expand. We have reviewed websites, we have reviewed videos, and now of late, we even have a short review of math manipulatives. So you can see that our definition of reading has broadened. And we thought it's a great time to actually discuss this and look at different sources by which we can get different perspectives on mathematics and math pedagogy. We have with us as our guests two mathematicians who have contributed significantly to the field of math pedagogy. Professor Parvin Sinclair was an algebraist at TIFR. She then worked as the director of NCRT and retired as a math professor from Indira Gandhi National Open University. Welcome, Dr. Parvin Sinclair. And Professor Ramanujam, no stranger to us. He was at the Institute of Mathematical Sciences, Chennai. He is a hardcore person in the field of computational science, and he works a lot with school mathematics. He has contributed through the Tamil Nadu Science Forum. He was given the Indira Gandhi Award in 2020 for popularization of science. Welcome, Professor Ramanujam.
Thank you.
So I'll start with my first question to you. And I know that you are a voracious reader. I know that you have actually worked with teachers through the teacher group or teacher network on reading together in groups around mathematics. So my first question is very simple. What books would you recommend? What resources would you recommend?
Thank you. Thank you, Sneha. I'll do one thing. I'll share screen, have a presentation and use that around for my discussion. Just a moment. Yeah. So I hope you can see the screen. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk about is if we want to talk about reading around mathematics, right? Now, one thing that I can think of is, this is a book that I reviewed for At Right Angles, Hardy's book, A Mathematician's Apology. It starts really, the question, what is mathematics, comes up for all of us, especially for math teachers all the time. And because when you are steeped in any practice, you're caught in the everyday. But stepping back a little, reading allows you to step back a little and get some perspective on what we are doing. What is it all about? Is mathematics a science, an art? Here is Hardy saying a mathematician, like a painter or a poet, is a maker of patterns. If his patterns are more permanent than theirs, it's because they are made with ideas. So mathematics as making of patterns, patterns made with ideas. Here is another little article by Paul Lockhart. It's actually taking off after Mathematician's Apology. He calls it a mathematician's lament. And he says the first thing to understand is that mathematics is an art, and art is something that you practice. And he's talking about math education, he's talking about these things. Now, these are voices to listen to. Now, these are not the sort of things that we even think about, reflect on, and so I wanted to mention this. And here is, I think probably where you got idea for your poster from. The famous quote by Albert Einstein, where he says, "Pure mathematics is, in its way, the poetry of logical ideas." And here is Einstein, of course, saying it in a very poetic way. And this was in a tribute to Emmy Noether, um, in 1935, and so another very important piece. Now, so what sort of things does one read around mathematics? One is books on mathematics. Basically for us to even think about what are the big ideas of mathematics. What is it that makes mathematics tick? And why is it foundational? Why is it fundamental? One has to ask these questions, and I would mention Timothy Gowers's very slim volume. It's all of 100 and 20 something pages. Mathematics, a very short introduction, and it's also for the style, very chatty, conversational style. Timothy Gowers gives you the idea, the flavor of mathematics. And there is another. It's actually a very old book, but this is some nth edition. I don't really know what is the number here. This is What is Mathematics by Courant Robbins, and Ian Stewart has added things later. There is a one by Saunders Mac where he calls it mathematics form and function. For him, uh, mathematics is the interplay between form and function. Many things that are true simply, that's why we call it formal, simply by virtue of form, actually carry out some purpose and some function. And um, so now, um, what these are books that make you think about what mathematics is, what mathematicians do, what are the big ideas of mathematics. Now there are also books that there are also articles that I would mention, which are short but greatly inspiring. I've already mentioned one, that is the Lockhart's Mathematician's Lament. There is one by Henri Poincaré, from way back in 1907, that is Intuition and Logic in Mathematics. Then there is one by Paul Halmos, Mathematics as a Creative Art. There again, talking about it as art. Then the Mathematization Matters by David Wheeler. I think this is a very short article, and I find it really profound. It tells you what mathematization is about. And on math education, some mathematicians talking about it, like Thurston's article, Mathematical Education, in the Notices of the American Mathematical Society, The Goals of Mathematical Education by George Polya. These are all worth reading for us to, reflect on the practice of our own, what we do. Then, okay, if Polya says if there is mathematics is about anything at all, it's about thinking. What is special about mathematical thinking? Invariably, we would say problem solving. But if that is the soul of mathematics, and we do all the time, we are working with children, we are doing problem solving. But reflecting on problem solving itself is another thing that these books do for you. Here are some books that I wanted to mention. George Polya's book, How to Solve It. um, Introduction to Mathematical Thinking by Keith Devlin. Thinking Mathematically by John Mason, a really beautiful book. Then Solving Mathematical Problems, a Personal Perspective by Terence Tao. All these are on the practice of problem solving. And all the time what you are doing is you've got some interesting problems, look at the problem, what goes on, how do we approach problems. This is the sort of thing, again, which is very important to the practice of mathematics education. And these book gives you some space to, again, step back, look at the process, and identify a whole lot of processes that we actually know are important in mathematics, but very hard to practice, like conjectures, generalizing. You take a particular case, it's difficult, you generalize, it becomes easier. This is very unique to mathematics. Look, searching actively for counterexamples. many such processes that are very important for mathematical thinking. So you will see many examples of these. And my point is that it is by listening to these very different voices that we would not normally listen to, our perspective broadens. And when we talk about another dimension that the books for me, I think, open out enormously is history of mathematics. And there is a wonderful archive that I like very much. Is this free online archive, MacTutor History of Mathematics. But how was history of mathematics looked at is also very important. There is this book by George Joseph, which I have reviewed in At Right Angles again, or Kim Plofker's book, which also I have reviewed in At Right Angles. And these are looking at mathematics. I mean, George Joseph's book is very important because it looks at not only mathematics from India, but from China, from Egypt, from African countries. So the various roots of mathematics looked at in a more universal fashion and across cultures, and whereas Plofker's is more about the various different periods of mathematics in India and giving a good historical account of these. I must also say that most of these tend to be male-dominated accounts, typically talking about the famous Men of Mathematics book by E.T. Bell. It's a wonderful book, but it's a very male gaze on mathematics. That's a very nice book that I like, which is Women of Mathematics, which looks at the role women have played in mathematics down there. Now, let me end this. I'm giving a long list. Of course, it's always frustrating to just hear a list, right? Now, let me also end with some different voices. Uh, since talked about women in mathematics, let me also talk about other kinds of accounts that you might hear. There is a lot now that you can see. I just wanted to mention a couple of them. One is by David Blackwell, who was the first black mathematician to get a professorship in the United States. He was a professor in Berkeley for a very long time, and a probabilist and statistician who's made immense, wonderful contributions to mathematics. Blackwell games are one of the most well-known in set theory, for instance. And so this conversation is really uh, very thoughtful and deeply insightful, I would say. I would also strongly recommend Piper Heron's blog, theliberatedmathematician.com. And she's really talking about what, looking at it not just from a gendered perspective, but from many different perspectives, the culture of mathematics, the world of mathematics, the process of everyday life in mathematics, what it does for different voices from in many different sections of society. So when I say reading around mathematics, I'm talking about the practice of mathematics, the everyday life of what mathematicians do, or whatever you are doing when you are doing mathematics, what you do, reflecting on that, history of mathematics, sociology of mathematics, many different things. And through that, the kind of perspective that we get, I think, is very, very enriching. This is probably the best message for me if you want to talk about reading around mathematics. Thank you. That is a long answer.
Thank you, Professor Ramanujam. You've actually preempted my next question also, because you've given us a lot of powerful reasons why we should read around mathematics. You've actually induced us to read around mathematics by telling us all that we can get from it. Uh, but your first sentence about reading allowing you to take a step back, um, I think is really very important, because many of the students and teachers of mathematics are so steeped in it all the time. They're so steeped in the volume of the syllabus to be covered. They're so steeped in the process of doing exams and studying and practicing mathematics that it almost seems like a luxury to be able to step back. Now, you've worked with a lot of teachers in the teacher network of the Science Forum, and you have actually done a lot of reading with them. So, can you share their experiences? What have you seen? How they have grown, and how have were they resistant? Did they take to it
Okay.
easily?
Uh,
Can you share a little bit about that?
okay. Uh, Thanks very much for that question. And I think first point to accept that it's not easy. um, if it's a habit, it's very good. But how do we, make this a habit, right? Now, one of the things that the Teacher Network did was to have collective reading exercises. Now, this we have done with something like 40 teachers, 50 teachers. This is broadly on education. Those reading exercises. It could be Paulo Freire. It could be some particular. It could be Liping Ma. It could be books on different aspects of pedagogy or policy. It could be. Now, also biographies. I did not mention biographies. One biography which got translated into Tamil, which we used in Tamil Nadu Science Forum for the collective reading exercise, was the biography of Ramanujam, the Man Who Knew Infinity by Andrew Cunningham. And one thing is that all these books that we've been doing in this collective reading exercises are those translated into Tamil. That is also very important, so that language is not a barrier. But I can mention some sources on these things available in Tamil and Malayalam, especially, where some of these books have been translated into Tamil. But the exercise there is for choose a couple of books over a weekend, sometimes more, sometimes only one book, but sit with the book. Some people are already selected who have read the book and come and share some insights, but there are also actual reading sessions where people sit and read marked portions of the book together and then discuss what goes on. Now, this is also very important because we want uh, not just to read alone, but a community of readers, a community of reading. When you talk about reading around mathematics, what we would like is a community that reads around mathematics so that it discusses questions that come up. Because there are many of these things are of, I mean, this is like all good literature is of relevance to you today at any time, right? And so that culture of reading together, I think, is very important. And this is something that we could do. Now, I think at right angles could have readership circles. I mean, I know of camps that have taken place, but we can easily envision readership circles that take up particular books, particular material for reading and discusses it as well. And I think the culture of reading, reflection, and critical engagement is what builds the community.
That's a great idea, Jam. Thank you. And maybe we could do it through our Facebook group or, something. I'll definitely take that forward. Thanks a lot. Um, you've talked of reading with teachers. Have you ever worked with students, school students, or?
Uh, yeah, with school students as well, especially some of the, a couple of the books that I mentioned on problem solving, how to solve it, Renstow's personal perspective, and also thinking mathematically by Devlin. These um, the the biographies, one on the biography of Erdős and the biography of John Conway. These were actually these were very popular with the students. Now, the thing is, I think some of the other books, Mathematician's Apology, didn't go very well. So it depends. I mean, I think with undergraduate students, the Mathematician's Apology went very well, but with high school students, not so. So I think one has to be very careful about the choice of books for different groups and do it
Yeah,
carefully.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. My colleague Swati Sarkar introduced me to those uh, cartoon guides. Those were also quite wonderful. The cartoon guide to algebra, calculus. I think those will really be appreciated by students. So, with that, let me move on to Professor Parvin Sinclair. And Professor Parvin Sinclair, we've talked a lot about the books, but are there any other resources which you would recommend? I know you are a reader yourself, but I know that you have also explored further, like Jam, and so could you share with us about those resources?
Yeah, Jan gave some inkling also by using going beyond books. He's spoken about that. There's just some, before I get into the resources, I just like to reinforce some of what Jam said. Um, One is, why do this broader reading, which you were trying to talk about also, and so on. It's not just in mathematics. If any of the people with us today think about, any area that they are interested in, it's going beyond what is the so-called text material or the syllabus, which is limited. By its nature, those are limited. So if you want to really get a broader understanding and overview of what we're trying to engage with, then this further engagement with other aspects of the discipline, in this case mathematics, is required. Uh, and one sees it, the titles that he spoke about, for example, mathematical thinking. Now, if as one is just browsing, and you browse and you come across, say, John Mason has made several videos. He's from the open he was from the Open University, um, in England. We worked together on some of the programs on thinking mathematically and the history of mathematics. But you see, when you start, we know that people learn differently. People have different ways of engaging with new ideas. Some do it by just reading, some do it visually, uh, some in different ways, as we know. So, seeing a video also helps you understand different aspects of conjecturing, which is part of mathematical thinking. After all, what is mathematical thinking? Where we have some ideas already, and we try and engage with them critically to see how they work, how far they go. Can they, you know, I want to say generalize it, so I pose a question. Is my question really okay? How do I assess that mathematically? The whole idea of proof comes into play. And this is very, very particular to mathematics, this way of thinking. So when you see it alive happening in a conversation visually, it, it grabs you differently, maybe, than from a conversation in a written conversation in a book or an article. So that's why these different media are interesting and show you different aspects, give you different aspects of the discipline and the broader view. So, what I was trying to look at was, for myself, also go beyond books. As you said, I'm basically a reader. In this, I'd like to say one thing. Yes, there are audio, videos, and so on. Maybe that slideshow, if I'll just have it simultaneously, maybe I'm putting it on, huh?
Okay.
Can you see it?
No, it's not come on. Do you want me to share it?
Yes, but in which case I need to go off this also.
I'm happy to wait if you want to try.
No, no, I increased it, but I can't go back. So how do I go back is the issue. Can you see me?
Yes, yes,
Okay, then I suggest that you share it if you can see
yeah,
me and you share it, because I can't see myself just now. That's
sure.
okay, that's all right. Uh, you see, if we are looking at different media. I've started with talking about audio first, and the reason, of course, I put audio there was that there's another issue. Some people aren't in a position to view or read materials. Either there could be an issue of visual handicap or a learning disorder and so on. So audio books come in very handy also.
Hmm.
And there are sites which I'll mention a little later in the next slide, where you can get a lot of different audiobooks. Also, there are several universities that have specially uh, got a cell for putting out audiobooks
Hmm.
of mathematical material also. See, people with disabilities, we need to look at different ways in which that support can be given so that they can
Absolutely.
be on, on have the same advantage as anybody else. Then there are the videos which are available on the different sites, which are so interesting, so exciting. Like I said, I thought if I could have cut and shown a bit of it, but if the people with us want to go on to the site, they can see how, for example, the fractals are created and how they go on infinitely. The Mandelbrot set, which is the standard example.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And actually,
What?
no book can do justice to that beauty, whereas it comes out so beautifully on the screen.
Yes. So such things, mobility, including if you're talking about any concept that involves, say, acceleration or any of these, it becomes so much easier. We move into astronomy, the cosmic um, area, and how in fact, mathematics is crucial for understanding the cosmos. One finds out all this by the further so-called reading, as we're saying, we when we engage with these different ways. Nowadays, over the past 2 years, a word has become very popular: podcast.
Hmm.
There are podcasts have been going on for a long time. We didn't call them podcasts, but they are there now, and because of technological ease of access, podcasts are available. Some from community colleges at a level that can be appreciated by more people on ideas like, say, Zeno's paradox, for
Hmm.
example. Then, talking about actually hands on, there's this whole relationship from ancient times that Pythagoras and others spoke of: music and mathematics. And even before that, we're told that ancient India also there was this understanding which may not have been recorded precisely anywhere, but was recorded much later. The interplay between the tones, the timbre of sound, and the mathematical precision of placing uh, the pressure on the string, for
Hmm.
example, or the calabash that is used, what kind of volume it has. So when you're actually playing and you try it out, you see that and the different materials, the cast of the container that is used for the larger portion of the sitar, say. So such things, there's a very, very precise relationship between that and mathematics. Dancing, of course, is a wonderful way of relating tal and the different aspects, rag, tal, etc. Rag is also mathematically precise. The tal is definitely mathematical, the rhythm, and through that you 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 catch the mathematics of it while using these different media, and certain aspects come into play. Related to audio video is cinema, which I put. There are several films that talk about different aspects of mathematics. Of course, you may agree or not, but all you see, any of these, be it books, be it these other media, be it sports activities or puzzles in recreational games and puzzles and so on, logical thinking, any of this is going to be a useful um, way of growing in the area if one thinks, reflects on what one is reading, looks at it critically, analyzes it, and then takes it further. If we don't just take it in, for example, in um, some of the media, some of the films, and so on, popular biases against mathematics are propagated. So, including, for example, what Jam was mentioning about the gender issue. No, so one has to look at it. Is it really so? The other
Yeah.
thing is where they say mathematics is very difficult. It isn't. So is it? I mean, why? Why is it or isn't it? What is doing it? Mathematics is fun or is not fun. Mathematics is involved in every aspect of life or is not. Now, statements are made in films, in other media. We need to analyze them also. Take them in, analyze them, and then accept or not. So that is the part of mathematical thinking that is useful only then. And it's mathematical thinking is not just in when you're kind of working with mathematics. Mathematical thinking is just a part of your whole life then. For example, nowadays there's this very popular online game called Wordle, where there are, options, and you make words out of letters, and you're giving some options and some time to complete it. Now you're checking, okay, you know that there are certain letters that show up more frequently. The frequency has been analyzed. So you use that. Does that work or not? Then you see a pattern, because mathematics, as was said earlier, is really about looking for patterns, confirming them, conjecturing about them, going further. So you look for patterns and in the words and then go making it. You decide, forget the games. You decide that you're going to go driving from, say, Delhi to Chennai in these particular months. Is it safe or not? There's a probability issue that comes into play. And you start thinking about it. Is it more probable that it'll be a safer journey now than if I go later or if I stop? And this is a daily life question. So these are different aspects that we develop totally and grow by these various media. Some sites that I had mentioned, which you
Do
would
you
be
want me
more,
to go to the next slide?
yeah, I've, I've gone to the next slide.
Yes.
Yeah. So are you doing it also? Or can you see the slide? Is the slide visible?
Jam, you'll have to help us. Are you seeing?
Is the slide visible?
I, yeah, I'm seeing the slides more.
Okay.
No problem.
So YouTube, of course, everybody knows about YouTube, and there are some very interesting programs on YouTube. Uh, In fact, the YouTube Vimeo, which I haven't mentioned because that needs some subscription, but these are some of the sites that are more easily available freely, largely. Archive.org has a huge collection of books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, films. Then there's the Open University UK. The third one is that has, uh, when we search this site, we get some mathematics and around mathematics video. Um, E-Gyan Kosh is the IGNOU website on which one finds other media. Similarly, there are other universities. They have the Fern University, Universitat Germany, and so on. Then documentaryheaven.com has a wonderful collection of programs from different platforms, documentary programs. And there's some very nice ones on and around mathematics. And then, as I've said, you just browse and you'll find things. For example, if you're interested in, say, photographs, just photographs of people, you want to know the history, you want to meet somebody, find out about somebody, say Ian Stewart. Ian Stewart is one of the people who writes very well around and about mathematics. He is currently based in Warwick, I think, in England. Uh, so then you bung in Ian Stewart maybe. And then you find something else. Say Ian Stewart has written that famous one about does God play dice? About chance and probability. And from that you go on to something else and you find you're just browsing and you're going into this whole enchanted world that's so related from one to the other to the other. It can become an addiction, so one has to be very careful about that. But yeah, that's the way it goes. There's another person I thought I'd mention since I mentioned Ian. Simon Singh. Simon Singh is also he's a physicist actually, who also writes on popularizing mathematics. I think Fermat's last theorem he wrote on, for which he got many awards, but he's written on others also. Uh, these are just a few other names that have come on. And the last slide, I'll just talk about some films that came. Recently, of course, there's a film which Jam will help me out about the women involved in NASA, something, the black
The
women.
hidden figures.
Pardon?
The hidden figures.
Yeah, yeah, Hidden Figures. So that's a further addition to what there is here. So Stand and Deliver is a film about a school teacher who was teaching the students who are from the poor, marginalized backgrounds, and how he went about trying to get them interested from complete disinterest to movie like doing very well. Actually, it's based on a true story. It's a film I think made in the 80s, if I'm not wrong. Another one was Goodwill Hunting, which is Goodwill Hunting is about this brilliant person who got sidetracked somewhere down the line when he was young, and it's just he can't focus on anything properly. Attention span is not there really. The interest is not there, and he is actually a janitor, but he has this wonderful intuitive mind about mathematics. And it's a film about that, how he goes about it. They bring in other issues also about child abuse and many other issues, societal issues that come into play. And it's very good if we can, even in our classrooms, uh, really tie in, integrate social issues with the mathematics that we are trying to share. And it's not difficult. There was this book, in fact, that I recently reviewed that gave examples of that too. And we'll find, you can find some examples in other books that we've created also. Then there's a beautiful mind about John Nash. John Nash, I think everybody has heard about him getting the awards and Nobel Prize and so on and so forth. Uh, for economics, because there's no Nobel in mathematics. That also you'll find out when you're doing your further assessing why there's no Nobel in mathematics, how there isn't. Jam referred to the man who knew infinity, which is available in Tamil also. Probably it may also be available with Hindi dubbing. I don't know. It's about Ramanujan. And A Brief History of Time, which was done some time ago. In fact, it's written by Hawking also, Stephen Hawking. It's about the work he's done by him, about him, uh, done in the 90s. It isn't the recent one on him. This is an earlier one which he did himself, a documentary. So there are several others like this, and I'd just like to I think yeah, I'll end with this for just now. There,
Thank
I'm
you.
back.
Yeah.
Sneha, may I add since Parveen has
Definitely.
this very exciting list of films, I thought I
Yeah.
should add a couple of more Hollywood films on that,
Yeah.
on math and around math. Uh, I would mention this, I think, 90s film called Infinity, sometime in 2005 or so, film called Proof. Then
Yeah,
there is later 21, which is on a group of young students who do use probability theory to do card counting in poker games. Then Traveling Salesman, a film in 2012, which
Wow.
was on the P versus NP problem. Uh, well, Imitation Game. Uh, yeah, I mean,
imitation. I haven't seen this traveling salesman one.
yeah. So these are all films, and Proof is a very interesting film because it has Anthony Hopkins and very famous actors, and it is about somebody trying to do a proof of Fermat's last theorem. Around that time, it was something of that kind, and so it's about a mathematical culture. There are these films that are around, and I think they also help in setting things. And yeah, just want to
Yeah.
add to the
Yeah.
list.
Thanks. There's also this TV series called Numbers. I think
Numbers,
you're, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
numbers. I think
Yeah.
X plus Y is the UK uh, from UK theatre, which made it a film.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
there are more. I don't know enough about shows. Probably there are more on TV shows. Yeah,
I'm
TV
sure
series.
you both will have a lot to ask each other. But before that, I just want to go back to Parveen's comment about the book she reviewed recently. That is coming out in the July issue, the review of Rethinking Mathematics. But I thought it was, having read your review, I went back and read the book. And I thought it was quite brilliant because it not only introduced different resources, but it also showed teachers how to bring them into the classroom. And would you agree with me, Parveen, on that?
Yeah, there are examples, but then
Yeah.
each needs to work it out her way, her own
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. It's not, I mean, as you said, the teacher will have to play a role in looking at different local resources to the, particular to the student's context. But they have used enough examples to give a teacher an idea of how to merge it with her regular classroom teaching. So I think Rethinking Mathematics is something that teachers should definitely get a copy of and read.
Here, I'd like to say one thing. When you mentioned cartoons, I was really trying to work out. You see, I don't. Let me mention over here the course that we've created in IGNO on how to teach young children
Hmm.
mathematics. It's a general course on how children learn what mathematics is, and therefore the interface of the two. Now, I brought a lot of cartoons in over there where I sat and I worked it out with an artist. But and it really adds to it, because
Hmm.
if if uh, if the reader or the viewer enjoys cartoons or enjoys a tongue-in-cheek way of looking at something, then that's nice. So
Yeah.
maybe I don't know. We've never had not that I know of. We've never had a competition of asking people to create cartoons around mathematics. That may be something nice that we could do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we'll just have 5 minutes of any questions you want to ask each other, and I'd encourage our audience also to post any questions. One of the members of the audience has suggested Sudoku as as a good pastime, and I think that's great. But is there anything you all want to discuss with each other based on what you all have said? Is there any question you all want to pose?
I
Uh,
I
Yeah,
wanted to ask.
clearly you have.
Yeah. No, I wanted to ask Parveen about animations because animations are very exciting, but I've only seen animations for specific pedagogic purpose, like linear transformations and linear algebra, something like that.
yeah,
Are there a lot of
it's
math animations that you can?
for it. I'm sure more people have done it, but many years ago, I did it when I created some
Oh,
programs.
okay,
So,
great. Yeah,
but I just wanted to mention something. Not It's not a question, but when you mentioned Sudoku, you see, I was never really into Sudoku, but when COVID came, then I had some more time on my hands, and I said, "Well, why not try it?" And my uncle, who was in his 80s, he used to do it regularly. So I said, then surely I can do it. And there are different levels that come in the newspaper, the Hindu and the Express and so on. And slowly I just, you know, I can't do without completing my Sudoku for the day.
yeah,
And there's a lot of reasoning involved. It's number
Yeah.
reasoning, as the whoever mentioned it. Similarly, there's a game called Nerdle that is online, Nerdle, which is really using the basic arithmetic operations and arithmetic. There's a statement, and you get that arithmetic statement. So it's these are very nice games with magic squares, which P.K. Srinivasan of AMTI, in fact, had tried to
yes,
popularize.
Yeah.
AMTI, the Association of Math Teachers of India, and P.K. Srinivasan, magic squares. He put out little booklets on several things. So
Yeah.
Ramanujam, I'm sure you have a set of those also.
in fact, one of his books, the Handbook of Math Labs, which was published by NCRT way back,
Manual.
Manual of Mathematics Labs, published by NCRT in the 1990s. It's still a wonderful resource book for math teachers, I would say. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
I tried to get that reprinted, but I don't really know what happened
yeah,
after that. They
yeah,
couldn't find basic the proofs. They
yeah,
couldn't find or something.
yeah.
Yeah. So I have a reminder from Arun Desai, who's also called the paper engineer. He says, "Don't forget paper and
Ah,
origami." you know, the
so,
craft and origami in particular, but all craft. I think there is huge possibility for teaching math through craft.
No, but teaching math through a variety of ways, yeah, that is okay. But here we're really talking about what around. reading
Yeah,
around it.
yeah.
So,
So I mean, since Sudoku came up, even Sudoku is like puzzles in general. But I think even if you walk around, right, walk around and see mathematics. Like for instance, columns for Tamilians or South Indians, column is something that we see every day, and very intricate columns, and it's deeply rooted in our culture, and there are people who are doing it and doing it on the floor outside on the ground outside your houses, right? I mean, what better mathematical practice can you think of, right? Or tessellations. In northern India, for me, uh, coming from Tiruchirappalli in the south to Delhi and Rajasthan and these places, the jalis that you see, the intricate jalis with all kinds of ornamental things, which have really come from Islamic art, but that has become really part of people's lives and practices, right? So if you actually start simply walking around and looking at from our own architecture and the kind of people's practices, I think again you read some mathematics around you here.
Yeah.
Similarly, I would say in walking around, listening around music. I think
Yeah.
especially in rhythmic patterns and melodic patterns, Indian music of all kinds, and classical music to folk music to whatever music that you look around, the intricate patterns that have mathematical sensibility. That there is a way of listening to it where it opens your eyes and ears, and I would say this is all part of reading the world as well. And
Yeah.
mathematics opens your senses in a particular way.
so I
Parveen,
just wanted to mention one thing. I mean, since we are doing it sitting over here and talking around, this teacher who was actually a number theorist, I would say, Kaprekar.
Yeah,
Have people heard of Kaprekar in Maharashtra? I think he was in Thane or beyond or somewhere. Deolali, one of the numbers he named after Deolali. Now,
right.
he does this interesting thing. There's this Kaprekar constant. For 4 digits, it is 61, I think 74 or something. But you take 4 digits, which aren't all the same. Okay, any from 0 to 9, say, and you call it 4431, say, and you or 4435, and then you make the largest number possible with these 4 digits, and you make the smallest number possible with these 4 digits, and you subtract the smallest from the largest. You'll get another 4 digits. Then do the same process with these 4 digits too, and so on. It will stop at one point where you get 6174, because whenever you do it with 6174, so the largest digit is 7641 and the smallest digit is 1467. You subtract these, you still get 6174 and so on. And this was a property that he found, and it is named after him. Not by him, but by someone else. It was named after him. And similarly, he worked with a lot of other numbers too, doing other things and finding out about numbers. Though he was a school teacher, and he worked in Deolali.
Yeah. We get a lot of submissions from people in different walks of life. One of our regular contributors is a garment shop sailor in a remote village in North India. So I think that this is the way people engage in mathematics, and even our audience has just got into the act, and there's so many suggestions coming in. If you all look at the comments,
Yeah.
playing cards, folk games of India, so many things, and so many things which just don't teach you mathematics but talk about history, geography, culture, sociology. So many things can come out when children engage in this. And I think both of you have really got people thinking and enthused them about this. Any last words for us?
Um, I, not specifically, I would say reading culture, sharing culture is what we want for building a community.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
And
I would just like to say that it's not just about using different models or different ways for teaching. What we're trying to say is let people go beyond what needs to be just taught immediately for the syllabus. Sure, that's good to do it in different ways, but we need to, all of us need to grow and know more. I mean, people come out with PhDs in mathematics and they've never had taken time out to even think about what math is. You ask a PhD, and this was surprised because when they sit down to think about it, they really can't come out with an answer. Only because they haven't really thought about it, looked it, read about it, read different aspects. And a very common answer is the science of number, which it's far, far beyond number. Number is an
absolutely,
example of what's going on in that abstract world.
yeah.
So I really uh, hope that this conversation has kind of opened out some areas that people may start looking at and thinking about, as I said, critically reflecting on what they then read, read in the wider sense.
Thank you both so much. I think it certainly has got people enthusiastic about this. And I think the two things that both of you said, Parveen, you described a very solitary journey from kindergarten to PhD, where people just go deeper and deeper into a subject and never really look at what it is. But what Jam said really makes sense in the light of that it is a communal activity, that we need to relate to others, we need to study together, we need to look at different perspectives, and we should use as many resources and as many conversations as possible to do that, to celebrate mathematics as something that is all pervasive. Would you all agree?
Yes, yes, certainly.
Thank you both so much. Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed this conversation with you all. And
Thank,
yeah,
bye.
Thank you
thank
very
you,
much.
our audience also.